Shalom. Call Haloyim La Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Brakta Yahweh, Brakta Yahweh Shai, Brakta Racha Kodash, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Shalom, and double honors unto the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elder bishops and the elders and the Akim and the Akwath of the hopeful elect. Shalom. Just wanted to go into a quick video, another milk lesson. For those, when you first come into the truth, precepts that you need to go ahead and understand and get down and master so that you can grow thereby to be able to understand and, move on to the mysterious, mysteries of and parables and hidden understanding of the Holy Scriptures. So in this lesson, it'll be about blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, or Israelites. So when people that have a low understanding can't comprehend the fact that, I'll say a good chance that they're part of the 2/3, because you have to have the full understanding to be able to receive the truth and to be converted. And so the Northern Kingdom are so-called Latinos and Native American Indians. So now when Christopher Columbus, as he's known by, but his true name is Cristobal, what is it? Cristobal Colon? But yeah, so Christopher Columbus is as what he's known in history. He came over on a boat, right, to the Americas. He used the Apocrypha, the so-called Apocrypha, to locate where the Northern Kingdom had went to and realized that they left and came to the Americas over here, the fourth part of the world. And when he was on that boat and when he was traveling over here on the waters, he had with him Hebrew speaking translators. Because why? He knew that when he encountered those people, the so-called Latinos, Native American Indians, that they would be speaking a different language than him. But why did he have specifically Hebrew speaking translators? Hebrew translators, right? Because he knew that he would be encountering the Northern Kingdom Israelites when he got off those boats. And then there's plenty of archaeology over here, and also a key factor is that there is the Mayan temples and pyramids that they built over here throughout the South Americas, right? Because the 12 tribes of Israel was in captivity in Egypt, and we built those pyramids over there, and they took that same engineering that was passed down from generation to generation. And the pyramids, that's why they were able to build pyramids similar to those over there in Egypt, because we were the ones in that heavy bondage building those pyramids over there. It goes deep. And so and there's archaeology as well that was found, but a few of those is, you can look it up, is you can Google this, the Decalogue stone, and you spell that Decalog, Decalogue stone. And also the Los Lunas stone, and you spell that Loslunes stone, Los Lunas stone. And then also the Bat Creek stone, like a bat, B-A-T, Creek stone. And these artifacts that was found over here in the Americas is one of the many identifiable artifacts, ancient ones that was over here that the natives had, the Latinos and Native Americans had, that prove that they are the Israelites, the Northern Kingdom. So we'll start here, and we'll start over here in Second Ezra, chapter 13. And verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes, who was at the Northern Kingdom, which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. So this is going into the history, letting you know that the northern kingdom, they got in I think it's in Second Kings chapter 17, if I'm not mistaken, about the Assyrians. The northern kingdom, they went off way worse. They went off first and worse than the southern kingdom, because they kicked out the Levitical priests out of the northern kingdom, and the tribe of Levi, they kicked them out, who were the priests of the Most High. And the Levites had to migrate from the northern kingdom and migrate and settle uh, solely in the southern kingdom, the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. And so then it became, the southern kingdom became three tribes: Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. The Levitical priests all resided in the southern kingdom. And then so when the northern kingdom removed the presence of the Lord, which were the Levitical priests, performing the ministry of the Most High, then Israel had went off and they anointed wicked priests. That was after the heathen nations, and so they went off way worse than the southern kingdom, and so they got removed out of the land first. They went into captivity first, and the southern kingdom, we became two different nations pretty much. And the northern kingdom went away into captivity first, hundreds of years before the southern kingdom did, and they went into captivity underneath the Assyrians. the Assyrians. And so continuing on, verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country, which never mankind dwelt. So the northern kingdom, after a period of the captivity, and when the Assyrian captivity ended, then they were, still scattered amongst the heathen over there in the parts of Assyria and in those other, neighboring cities and over in the area. And so they decided to go ahead and travel to a further country where never mankind dwelt, meaning this land was untouched and never lived in by any other nation. It was just land, just prime for, to be inhabited. And that was the Most High. It's like when you play a video game. At the beginning, certain parts of the city is locked. You can't go into it until you beat certain parts, until you beat certain, missions, and then then other parts of the city become unlocked. This is like we're living like a real life game or a real life movie, because now, it wasn't time for America to be inhabited until that time. This land was just reserved and locked until the Northern Kingdom would later on in history come over here and leave the three parts of the earth, which was Africa, Europe, and Asia, and travel to the fourth part of the earth. And then they would dwell over here in the Americas until Christopher Columbus began that process of the Edomites, so-called white race, coming over here to enslave us over here for our very last captivity before the Messiah returns to deliver us with those so-called UFOs, the chariots. So now backing up again. So the Northern Kingdom said, okay, so the Most High punished them for a season with that Assyrian captivity, and then they left that Assyrian captivity and they traveled on boats and came to the Americas, and they lived over here for a couple thousand years, until the Edomites, so-called white race, began invading, beginning with Christopher Columbus, the Spanish, and then the French, and the Portuguese, and so forth and so on, the Brits. Okay, so verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves. Okay, we read that. So verse 42. That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. So they said, okay, we'll leave. We'll go to another country where no one else ever lived in, which is the Americas. And then they said, we'll go ahead and finally try to keep the commandments that we didn't keep in the Northern Kingdom. In verse 43, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. So they're showing you the route and how they got here and the route that you need to take to get to the Americas. In verse 44, for the Most High, Yahweh, then showed signs for them. Because one of the, and the signs was in the skies in the heaven. Because Issachar, one of their key, I believe it's Issachar, one of the northern kingdom tribes. I believe it's the Issacharites. One of their key specialties is that they're able to what you call it, decipher the messages in the heavens through the stars and the constellations in the sky, and that's how they were able to guide and navigate through the Most High guiding them from the heavens, and then probably more than likely with the chariot as well. So what they would call a so-called UFO. So verse 43 again, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. Verse 44, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood. And what's the flood? The ocean. Till they were passed over. So, the ocean is a very frightening, it's me personally, ocean is scary, and it is very powerful. And when it gets to rocking and moving, it capsizes overthrow boats in the ocean. And so the Most High had stilled the ocean, and it was just a very still, calm ocean and allowed them to peacefully travel over to the Americas. Verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. So that Arsareth means another land, and Arsareth is over here is the Americas. So it took a year and a half journey to get from over there to over here. It don't take a year and a half for the Northern Kingdom to travel to any area of Africa, Europe, and Asia. So if it took a year and a half, then that means they had to go really far, and that's the Americas over here, the fourth. When you look at the map, you can see how far away. It's a good distance away from America's a good distance over here in the Western Hemisphere from the other eastern continents, and from where they travel from through the Euphrates. Verse 46, then dwelt they there until the latter time. And what's that latter time? These end days. So the Most High went ahead and brought them over here basically to just sit there until it's time for them to go into captivity, and then the southern kingdom will get taken later on over here to join them. And that was doing what? The transatlantic slave trade in 1619. So verse 46, then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. So that's proven and showing through the history, what happened to the Northern Kingdom and where they went, because they never came back to Israel, the Northern Kingdom. So where did they go? They didn't just disappear. They traveled from Assyria area over there, and they traveled through the Euphrates River all the way over here to the Americas. So continuing on. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 27, and verse 1. And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, keep all the commandments which I command you this day. So it was all about keeping the commandments, and if not, then the punishments will come down. And Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai thy power, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord Yahweh thy power will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. So that would be the benefit of keeping the commandments. If we keep the commandments, we'll be over the nations, but if we don't, then we'll be beneath them. So going down to we'll go here to verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So verses 2 through 14 are the blessings of keeping the commandments. And then as it say right there in the heading, it says consequences of disobedience. So if we don't keep the commandments and we sin, then the Most High will place all these curses upon us. And this is how you can determine who are the Israelites today, because society is still wicked, but there's a nation that's being punished the most in the earth. All other nations got their nation, but the Israelites, we do not. So-called Black Latinos, Native American Indians. So verse 16, cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Everything we do in Babylon the Great, aka America, we're cursed. And we don't have any businesses. We do on a small scale, but people are living as individuals, and we don't have great business as a nation that brings in, income to our nation as a whole, because we're divided. And even when we came together in unison, so-called, that Black Wall Street, when we were thriving a lot more than our Edomite, so-called white neighbors surrounding us, what they did, they dropped bombs. They created a lie through a Edomite devil woman, and they lied, and then they had the excuse to go ahead and come and destroy Black Wall Street, and they dropped bombs on Black Wall Street. So this is not our rest. Even if we were to have success here, the Most High is not going to allow us to thrive, because this is merely our captivity, as we read in 2nd Ezra 13, that they will be there for a season until that punishment will come down upon us. So in verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. And that's what happened when we got those slave ships, went to those auctions, and our children were given into the hands of other slave driver Edomites, so-called white men. And we got split up. And throughout the captivity, they will breed us wickedly, right? And then they will take away the babies when they were born and give them to another slave driver plantation, and just split us up and sell them off. And like the scriptures speak of in Revelation, they sold a boy for wine and sold a girl for wine and a boy for a harlot. So they were selling us and making merry, using us as just like you would sell your TV or something, or a couch or any household items. They were doing that with us to other people and celebrating and toasting. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand. So that's what nation has no might in their hand against other nations, chiefly the so-called white race, so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. This doesn't fit anyone but us. In verse 48, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. Because everything we need, we have to go to a heathen establishment, chiefly Esau, the so-called white man, and then also these other heathen that has these food restaurants and gas stations, hotels, and hair and nail salons, and hair shops where they selling heathen hair for wigs and for weave, clothing, everything we need. We go to the heathen for. We don't make anything ourselves. On a small scale, we may have a couple of people have their own little businesses, whatever, the little internet online stores and stuff like that, or even maybe possibly, brick and mortar stores you can walk into. But it's not putting a dent in anything in this economy of independence as a nation. So hunger and thirst and in nakedness, because if you don't have clothes, but you're naked, so we have to buy our clothes, our food, water, our nutrition, everything that we need. We go to the bank for a bank loan for a house, or we go to Edomite owned or even other heathen owned slummed out millionaires in the hood, owned heathen owned projects, apartment buildings, everything. We're in want of everything. The people that's claiming to be the Israelites over there with the little hats on their heads, they don't they don't want in all things to other nations. They actually run the banks that do the lending, the Federal Reserve banks. So and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, and that's happened in slavery and captivity. You can Google that, yokes of iron on quote unquote African Americans. There's pictures of us with those yokes of iron on our necks until he have destroyed thee. And how he destroyed us mentally and spiritually first and foremost, because of course physically with the bondage, the hardcore slavery, but then the process of mental. He captured us, with the so-called Africans, which are Hamites, which are not our people, and then he gained the victory with the physical slavery, and then over the process, he got us over here and beat our identity out of us, and that was in the movie Roots. It wasn't beating our African nationality out of us, but it was beating our Israelite nationality out of us. So that's how we got thoroughly destroyed. That's how you thoroughly destroy people. You beat their identity out of them. That's complete and utter destruction and annihilation of a nation. So verse 49, the Lord Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, and that was it started with the Northern Kingdom with Christopher Columbus, and then later on the Southern Kingdom, so-called blacks, and the Caribbean island brothers who were the tribe of Benjamin, and then the Levites, so-called Haitians, and then we got rounded up on the west coast of Africa and brought over here. It says thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, and what's America's national bird, the bald eagle, a nation whose tongue that thou shalt not understand, because they always changed their languages, because they spoke the Greek language when they came into power as the Greeks, and then when they transitioned to the Roman Empire, then they spoke Latin, a different dialect of the Greek, and then they spoke Spanish to French to Portuguese, all these different languages, English now, the English language, all of its transition, all of their languages goes back to the Greek. So we didn't understand all these languages. So, and they gave us their tongue through the captivities, and that's that divide and conquer. Different Edomite tribes speaking different Edomite languages has put that barrier of language between us. We speak, so-called African Americans, we speak what English, and then Brazilians, they speak in what Portuguese, and so-called Mexicans speaking Spanish, and so-called Puerto Ricans speaking Spanish, and I believe it's Spanish, right? So, and so forth and so on, and that's how another way that we've been destroyed, and they've been falsely indoctrinated to hate us. The Northern Kingdom, so-called white man, has sowed discord amongst brethren, and taught the Northern Kingdom, so-called Latinos, Native Americans, to look down upon so-called African Americans, who are the tribe of Judah, the top tribe, and to look down on them as if they're lazy and nothing. But we are the ones that built this country, right? So that's Esau has a hell of a lot to pay for his diabolical hatred that he's sown amongst brethren. So verse 50, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young, because in those slave fields, plantation cotton fields, the elderly had to perform just as high at the same level of the young prime um, prime Israelite man, and they would beat their backs in and do all kind of other wicked tortures upon the elderly and young, and anyone that didn't meet certain quota of picking the cotton and doing whatever other free slave labors that they were enjoying on those plantations. So it's very diabolical what the so-called white man, the Edomites, have done. And this happened only to us, so-called Black Latinos, Native Americans, and not no little hat people, not any little hat people. They didn't go through these curses, and we're still in these curses until the Most High saves us through Yahweh Shai, his right arm and only begotten Son. So it's verse 64. And the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, shall scatter thee among all people. And so we're scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. The little hats are gathered together over in Jerusalem. This curse don't fit them. From the one end of the earth even unto the other. There's people in every nation that's a no people, and that's the Israelites. And there thou shalt serve other gods. And that's why our people are shrouded and overflowed with different religions, from Roman Catholicism, Christianity, Baptist Church, Buddhism, Hinduism, all these false religions, the East Indian madness. So, the Islam, Muslims, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. See, because our ancient forefathers, they didn't know any of these modern religions and false denominations of Satan. Even wood and stone. And what is that? The cross is wood. That's Christianity. That's just an idol. That's not, anyone that does that, do the cross over their head, the imaginary cross. You see that a lot in sports. Before they get up to the batter's box, they'll kiss the hand, kiss the finger, and then they'll do the cross over their body. That's idol worshiping. That's an idol. That's not spiritual. That's not righteous. That's wicked. Even wood and stone, and that stone goes into that cobblestone. And over there in Islam, the Muslims, they're worshiping that damn stone. And so that's all heathen idol worship of Satan. In verse 68, and this is the biggest one that proves, that prophesied the transatlantic slave trade. And then also the Northern Kingdom had went to slave ships as well when Columbus had came over here, and he took them back to the to Spain and other areas of Europe. Verse 68, and the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. The word Egypt means bondage, pursuant to Exodus 20 and 2. Chapter 20, verse 2. So Egypt means bondage, because this is after the first Egypt. So this is a second Egypt, and that's America, Babylon the Great. And the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into slavery again with ships. And that's the key right there, the ships, because we didn't walk into Egypt. Jacob, our forefather, and his family, and it was 70 men that walked into Egypt in the ancient times, right, to go and meet up with his son Joseph, who he had not seen in a long time. So he walked into Egypt. So he didn't need a ship to go into Egypt. And when we left out of Egypt with Moses, from the Most High guiding us, we walked out. We didn't ride on ships. So this is a different. So those ships are the transatlantic slave trade, and then, Columbus taking Northern Kingdom brothers, Latinos and Native Americans across the ocean to Europe as well. So we shall go into Egypt again with ships. by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. See what no more again? The land of Israel. So that's why it doesn't fit biblical prophecy that the little hats are back in the land at the strength of their own hand. It would be at the strength of the hand of the Most High, putting us back into the land of Israel. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold into your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, as slave men and slave women. So like I said earlier, when we got off the slave ships over here, when we docked over here, we went into auction slave. We went to the slave auction blocks, and we got sold to our enemies. It says sold into your enemies, not sold to your friends, but sold into our enemies. So that lets you know that the so-called Edomites, so-called white race, the Edomites, are not our friends. We're not supposed to let bygones be bygones. We're not supposed to go and take up arms against them, but return to the Most High, and He'll take care of our enemies. For bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And that word buy goes into redeeming. And no man's going to redeem us. So why are the little hats over there that's claiming to be, the Ish people, claiming to be Jews? Why are they claiming that, why are they're over there in the land? That means that they redeemed themselves. And no man's going to buy us or redeem us until the Most High deems it the acceptable year of salvation and vengeance upon the wicked. So shall buy is kana, to get, acquire, create, buy, possess. So to get, acquire, obtain, and right here A, it says of Yahweh originating, creating, redeeming his people. So that goes to redeeming. And no man shall redeem you, because you could redeem men that went to captivity in the ancient times. Or if they sold themselves as a servant, someone can buy you out of it or redeem you, but nobody is going to redeem us and save us out of this captivity. That's why we're destroyed until this day and have no representation in the United Nations, because the Most High is going to redeem us and set us in our own land at the proper time appointed. Slakia. So I just wanted to go into the video real quick to just go into, blast Latinos, Native American Indians, or the true Israelites. And we prove it through the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. And you can read all of these curses on your own, read this whole chapter on your own, and you can see that we fit all these curses, cleaves to us like a tattoo. The Most High tattooed these curses on us, and we can't shake them until He decides to go ahead. That it's the time that we've had enough, and it's time to go ahead and bring in eternal righteousness for eternity under His, through His right arm, His Son, Yahushua, His only begotten Son. So with that being said, I hope this video was edifying. The waters of Rechak Wadash for another video. Until the next video, I say, Shalom.